Thank you.
All right, welcome Queens to another episode. I have a very special guest with me today, and it's a very different special episode because those of you that know me already know that I'm into all things woo-woo and quantum physics and all the things. And today I have Tom with me, and he's an expert and a researcher for Scalar Light Energy. So he's going to explain the magic of Scalar Light Energy today and how it's changing the world as we know it. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you for the invitation.
Of course, it's a pleasure to have you. So we're going to go straight in with 10 quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, why not?
Okay, number 1, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Number 2, early bird or night owl?
Or early bird.
Number 3, weights or cardio?
Cardio.
Number 4, have you got a favorite quote or a mantra?
Many. The truth will set you free.
Love that. What is a book that you would recommend everyone in the world to read?
A book on morality.
Love. What 3 words would you like people to remember you by?
Kind, Christian, humanitarian.
Love those. Have you got a fave place in the world, whether it's a country, city, or a place in your home?
Any place warm.
The sun is shining here today. It's beautiful. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
And your favorite color?
Probably blue.
And last question, in a sentence, because of course we're going to take a big deep dive. Why do you want people to know about this magic scalar energy?
The benefits to be derived. This technology, Scalar Light, it's a new and emerging science. The benefits are incredible. I want to help mankind.
All right. Okay. Thank you for answering those so beautifully. Let's dive into it then. And I've got loads to ask you, and I'm curious myself. Having received it and already noticing a difference, I'm curious about how it all works. So the first question, what is scalar energy? Where does it come from? What is it?
It's a new science. What do I mean by that? We're not studying electricity and magnetism. There's 2 energies. There is electromagnetic energy and another spectrum, another dimension known as scalar energy. Well, what is scalar energy? Chi, prana, consciousness. Some people call it 0-point energy. Others might call it the life force energy. So we're working with a different type of energy than that of electricity. And I have perfected scalar energy instruments that control that energy.
Wow. What's the difference between that scalar energy and electromagnetic energy then?
It's the difference of night and day. If electricity is a current, meaning a movement of electrons, scalar energy is consciousness, the spirit of God that permeates the universe. So I tell people, why would you just want to work with an energy that just relies upon a movement of electrons? Whereas you could have the entire universe with scalar energy. Wow. That's the difference. So scalar energy is everywhere. It really is the omnipresence of God. Some people call that consciousness. And it can perform so many more benefits, work functions as compared to electricity.
Wow. It's like, in terms of what I'm getting when you're sharing that, just as an example, it's like when you're thinking of someone and then they call you or message you, and it's almost like we're connected, but not physically, but everything is an energetic focus towards, like, I'm thinking about a person, then it's not uncommon for them to then message me or call me because they've just felt that unconscious energy pull. Would you kind of also describe it that way as well?
Yes, it's communication. It really is the reason behind brainwaves thinking or clairvoyance. Some people call it intuition. Yes, it's part of that thought. And with that in mind, it's non-physical, it's thought. And this is what we've captured now. We're entering into that realm of information or a thought or consciousness. It's not a physical construct.
Yeah, I've just recently finished reading a book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called The Missing Secret. And I can't think of the author's name, but he talks about, there was he wasn't a scientist, he was a psychologist or someone who treats people with mental disorders. And he got sent to this psychiatric prison ward, And instead of what he was there to do, what he was paid to do was actually almost give like therapy sessions to these prisoners. But he didn't do that. He didn't even see the prisoners. What he did instead was look at their records every day and then send love and gratitude and thanks to each and every person energetically. And then the rates at the prisoners improved. Some of them were released from that prison into a normal prison because they were no longer psychotic. Some of them were like wanting to express gratitude and love. And he didn't even see the prisoners. So that's just like the book I've recently read, that just shows and proves for those people who are kind of like, it proves that this kind of energy is very, very powerful.
Yes, yeah, you're right. To speak to that point, I work with people by way of a photograph. Why? Because their image or their signature is embedded, imprinted upon a photograph. So like you said, I'm sending scalar energy or love to that person by way of their photograph. So again, this is a non-physical energy. And I work with force field on photographs, which are non-physical. So I will have to accentuate that. This is a new science. And yes, many mystics, many philosophers have proven this centuries ago. Well, now we're catching up to that.
I believe that we're like remembering everything that we've already discovered before. I don't think that the dinosaurs were the first. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but from what my beliefs are showing me or letting me know, we've already been this highly advanced conscious creation on Earth, and then we've kind of lost that and then started again. Do you believe the same?
Yeah, I do. Many civilizations, many cultures understood this concept. Some call it prana, chi, life force energy. You've had tribes, you've had civilizations that have embraced this sun energy. Today, sadly, academia does not embrace this concept.
Yeah, and this is what we're changing. So let's go into more of the questions then. So how does this type of energy transmute matter, like physical matter? How does that work?
Yeah, since it's non-physical, it can only give an expression or information to matter. What do I mean by that? This is information. Let's call it an information system. And scalar energy as an information system or instruction sends information to everything in the universe, and it's responsible for spiritual, cognitive, emotional, physical behavior, but doesn't have a physical presence. So it's the instructions that instructs the universe. I have to make that clear. Instructions, you can receive instructions. That's simply information. It's non-physical.
Is that how I believe that our thoughts create things, and if we think it, then we can hold it in our hand? Is that how that concept works as well?
Exactly. And now you see, boiling this down to a common day event, everybody, you can think, you can project, and as many times people say, what you think is what you create. That's true. And what is thought? Human thought is a scalar wave. When you really boil it down, thinking is a function of scalar energy. Any thought is a broadcast of scalar energy.
Yeah, and they can, I know it's a different energy because you can't track this, but they can also, using quantum physics, thinking actually produces another type of energy as well, if I'm right.
Exactly. So everything begins with, so to speak, the first domino, and then everything after that falls in line. Yeah. And the first essence, the first principle is always instructions, light. So light is the cause, and then everything else is the effect, the result.
I actually recently, it's so funny how you come into my life, and I kind of believed this previously anyway before we met, but very recently, like I've shared with you, I've read that book recently that was sharing how they transform the prisoners just through conscious thought alone. And then I've also come across a rice experiment before. Is it Dr. Emoto? Are you aware of that?
Yes, go on, continue.
Yeah, yes. So like 3 jars of rice, like one you label love, one you label hate, one you just ignore. And then each day for 30 days, you pick up the jar labeled love and like physically speak loving words to that jar. The second jar, obviously hate. I mean, I've I'm going to find this very difficult to speak hate to a jar of rice, to be honest, to speak the words of like hatred, like you disgust me. And then over the 30 days, there's so many experiments online. So if anyone wants to look it up, just Google the rice experiment. The jar with that has been sent love every month is just still nice white rice. I mean, you probably wouldn't eat it, but it just looks like nice fluffy rice. The hate one has got like mold on it and it's gone black. And like that's to prove that our words, our energy, our focus actually changes physical matter in the cells.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. And this is now being proven by experiments. Now, again, you cannot measure thought. You cannot measure scalar energy. It's the omnipresence of God, but you can see the before and after results. And that's what I predicate my research on, the before and after results. And you're absolutely right. When people project an image or some type of an expression, whether it's to a person or to rice, all of that is the information system, what people call the field or consciousness. That's scalar energy.
I'm thinking of Jesus now. I mean, I'm not Christian per se, but I was baptized, not baptized, that's Catholic. I was christened in a Christian church when I was younger, and I went to Sunday school and all the things. So I know the story of Jesus, obviously. What I'm feeling is Jesus had an extremely amazing gift of using that energy to heal people straight away, like in front of them. Do you think that someone is capable of doing that today?
Of course. God gives us his ability. Jesus gives us his ability. When you mention Jesus, he could lay his hands on people and heal them. So, what is the function? It really is light, his essence, light, going out imparted by healing hands, which is scalar light. Well, that gives credence to modern day faith healers. If they can lay hands on you or pray for you, anybody can pray for you and heal you. How do they do that? It's with scalar instructions, with scalar light. So we see how the science of it is now really merging with the religious belief.
Yeah.
Science could be defined as scalar science. The religious belief is healing hands or other types of thought, emotion. And that all is the same. The common denominator is the cause, scalar energy.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it really is. It's so simple. It's so pure.
It's gorgeous. And I'd love to ask about how it helps with our nutrients. So the question here is, how does the scalar energy, or the light, of course, turn on the ability for our bodies to heal itself, and all of those things that, what you do helps people from afar?
Okay, so I just want to accentuate. When I work with people email me photographs. This is my email photo. This is my photograph. And a person would email me a photograph. I had actually placed the photograph inside the instrument, because the instrument would look at the embedded code or the intelligence on the photograph. And then instead of speaking to rice, I am sending energy into the photograph. And it has been shown in my laboratory now with photographs, I can identify a virus and break it apart and destroy it. Wow. Or I can balance the 7 chakras found on the photograph. So, the party to the action, the recipient, is always the photograph. And the animating force, the animating principle, is always scalar light through my scalar energy instrument. So the fact that I work with an instrument, it's a dependable process. It's a repeatable process. And with that in mind, that's the science behind it. Working with this non-physical energy with an instrument in which I can break apart a virus, or I can balance the brain waves in 7 chakras, or I can in some way reverse or lessen, say, a phobia or addiction, if you will. All of that speaks to the point of this intelligence. And people now understand that this intelligence can change events.
Can you talk to us about the instrument that you use then? So this is going to go out on video form as well. Mainly the Queens on the podcast will be listening. So if you are listening, go and check out the YouTube video as well. But Tom, can you explain, first of all, how you even built the instrument? Did you build it, and how that works, so that we can have like an image in our head?
Yeah, I learned from one of the few experts of scalar energy, a man by the name of Galen Hieronymus. I studied his work, and I actually was able to purchase his instrument, Scalar Energy instrument. He's an American inventor. And then I perfected those instruments. I'm working with a brilliant engineer with a few other engineers. So the long and short of it is we have custom built scalar energy instruments. And I think that's quite a monumental feat because this is not electricity. This is, if you will, groundbreaking engineering, groundbreaking research. Now, I have photographs of the instruments. They're custom built instruments. And they're on my website, scalarlight.com. The key element is here. We have perfected the technique to capture scalar energy, and working through a person by way of their photographic interface, we're able to have a dependable process on those photographs. So I can prove my work in my laboratory with a photograph, but on account of the fact I never work with people, people are at a distance, then I have to rely upon people's feedback. That's the key. People, I have many testimonies on the website, but the key is, what do people feel? Now, keep in mind, this is not conventional science. You don't visit an office. Nobody would ever say that you're going to go and get a massage and you're going to send your photograph to get the massage. No, that's obviously that doesn't apply. So this is a new science. We have a body of evidence that's growing by way of testimonies. And right now, all we can rely upon is testimonies, because there's no rigid scientific formula or protocol to prove or disprove how a photograph receives energy.
I've got a few questions around how you help people and the transformations that you've had. I've read your website and there's like tons, so I want to go into that in a moment. But the first question I have around that, does the person have to be, like, say, for example, I sent you a photograph of my best friend who didn't know about this, but I wanted you to send her the healing for X, Y, and Z. Does the receiver have to be open to receiving, or do they need to know about it?
It helps if somebody is open to receiving this energy. But keep in mind, I'll give you an instance. For instance, I treat dogs and cats, pets. And I don't think a dog or cat realizes that they're being treated like a scalar energy instrument. Maybe they do. But nonetheless, I have great outcomes after I work with people's pets. Now, again, it's anecdotal. If you're looking for a cold, hard, double-blind test, you'll never get it. You can't perform a double-blind test on a photograph. This is a new science. You need a new scientific protocol to test. But to answer your question, dogs and cats respond quite favorably. So is a dog or cat aware that they're being treated? I don't think so. No, but it still works.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love how you're saying you can't measure it in that way, but the testimonials speak for themselves. It's even things like, let's just talk normal language for a moment. I go to a nice restaurant, the food's incredible. I tell you about it. I tell all my friends about it because I just want to share a really good thing. Yes. There's nothing I'm getting from sharing. Like, I'm not involved in the marketing of the restaurant, etc. So with what you do, people's testimonials speak for themselves. So like, I mean, please share like what you've managed to heal. You've managed to heal herpes, genital herpes, like the actual virus, like so many things.
But these instruments are able to detect now the presence of microbes, germs on a photograph. If I had the herpes virus, the instrument could pinpoint it, that I would have the herpes virus, and then send energy into my information field to break apart to destroy the herpes virus. Now, I can prove that in my laboratory because I'm working with photographs in my laboratory, but I need people to say yes or no, has this helped them? Because I never work with people. So the connection between the photograph and the person is anecdotal. It remains theoretical. I can't prove that. This is a new science. There's so much that we have to prove or disprove.
Yeah.
But invariably, anytime I work with a person, say with herpes or HIV, after I work with that person, invariably, if those people will have some type of diagnostic test, it's known as a PCR test. That's the main test that people submit to. Of their volition. Now, it's not my words. They tell me that they no longer have herpes or HIV.
Wow, that is incredible. And you know, I also I'm always reading. I think it might have been Conversations with God, the book I read a while ago. And one of the questions that he asked God, per se, was, why have you not shown yourself to us to like prove in quotes that you're here? Yes. And then God said, like, laughed and was like, the amount of times I've tried to prove who you really are in human form. You've either killed the person, been at war with the person, because like Jesus again, for example, someone so magnificent, who I believe each and every one of us have the ability to do that as well, can just go around healing people. We then think there's some kind of, you know, person that's not to be trusted because of how powerful they are. And so I'm just getting that into my like head when you're talking. All of this magic we've been given now is available to us. There's going to be so many people that are non-believers, which is okay because everyone's entitled to their own beliefs, but just have an open mind and an open heart when you're listening to this conversation, because the results speak for themselves. It wasn't that long ago we thought the earth was flat. I mean, come on, you know, all these sciences that are coming out, the human mind, the human brain is still not completely understood because it's so complex and just incredible. Like, so just have an open mind. If you're listening to this and you're kind of like a bit skeptical, that's okay, but just allow yourself to be open. What else would you say, Tom, to the people who are struggling, who kind of want to believe it, but are struggling to do that?
My predecessor, a man by the name of Galen Hieronymus, received 3 patents for this instrument: the US, British, and a Canadian patent. Okay, 3 patents. So according to those 3 governments, there was merit to his scalar energy instruments. And many people around the world express that they feel benefits after sending me photographs. Now, the testimonies are from the people, not from me. So this is the key. If it was just me speaking in a unilateral fashion, you just say, well, Tom, you're biased. That's true. I do not speak. The testimonies speak. And if you visit our website, we have 3,000 testimonies from people. That's their firsthand experience. To me right now, that's the key to this research, which is a testimony. No, I cannot prove this by a double-blind test. No, there's no scientific protocol to prove how a photograph receives energy. That's a new science.
There's also no science to show that Jesus walked on water either, you know?
Right. Good for you. Good for you.
So in terms of the future then of scalar energy, what do you see, or how do you hold the vision and hopes for the future of this? And how can it change the world in other ways as well?
You know, many in your audience know the name Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, who is another great scientist. Tesla was developing scalar energy towers, free energy towers. He was able to capture star energy, sun energy. That's what scalar energy is, the energy from the stars. And he was able to send out, broadcast, transmit that free energy. So what am I getting at? If we can duplicate Tesla's work, we'll have a free energy tower. Imagine that. And I say this frequently, the new power plant, the new power station are the stars. So all you have to capture is star energy and you overcome the energy crisis.
Yeah. And we are made of stardust. Like, we're made of the same things as what stars are made of, right? That's a newish scientific study as well. Like, we're all made of the same stuff.
Yes, which is scalar energy, which is the first principle of nature. In order to have nature, a universe, you need instructions. Light, be light made. Light is the first requirement to have a universe, instructions.
That's amazing. I'm just letting that land for a moment and just letting anyone else just let that land also. In terms of this scalar energy then, and I know you've shared some testimonials, well, you've not shared actual testimonials, but what people have experienced through receiving this. Have you experienced any unique or anything that surprised you when you've been doing your testing and developing
all the time, all the time. I'll give you an anecdotal story. I live in Florida, and during lightning storms, lightning is scalar energy. And my instrument sometimes will spark or create a very miniature lightning bolt because it's communicating with the lightning in the atmosphere. So during a scalar energy lightning storm, my scalar energy instrument experiences a miniature, a lightning bolt.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you believe, and this is just obviously my own question, just that's come to me, in terms of lightness, which is what we're talking about, the light, the energy, all that is in my belief as well, is there an opposite to that in terms of any darkness or anything like that?
Yeah, if I firmly believe this is divine light. It's the light of Jesus. And with that in mind, this light dispels the darkness, so to speak. Are there evil forces? Yes. And those evil forces do not have the light. In other words, if there is an evil entity, that evil entity cannot possess scalar light, because scalar light is the image of God. Now, there really is credence. Are we made in the image of God? Yes. And one of the proofs is that everybody has scalar energy, which is a divine light. So if we have divine light, divine instructions, then we have God's image, God's divine image. And I firmly believe that scalar energy is that divine light, that divine image.
What about the dark, in terms of, you said that you think there's darkness in this world.
Yeah.
In terms of people, in terms of like, this question doesn't make sense because it's literally just coming to me and I'm trying to explain it as I'm thinking it. If everything that was created is of God, which is what I believe.
Yes.
What about the evil stuff then? Is that created then has gone a different way? Like, and obviously this is a very strange question, so please just do
That's a
your
good
best
question. It's evil is the rebellion against God. It's the rejection of his light. It's the rejection of his love. So what's the opposite of love? Hate. What's the opposite of light? Darkness. So when we reject God, we reject all of those attributes. We reject all of those benefits. And what do we have? Misery. You know, if you look around us in the world today, is there misery? Yes. Why? We're rejecting God's gifts.
I love that. And I'm just thinking as well, in terms of darkness and light, if you're in a dark room and it's dark and you can't see anything, and then you switch the light on, the light comes on and then the darkness disappears. There's no violence, there's no fighting, there's no effort. Where light is, or where it's shining, darkness cannot be there. It just because the light is there.
Very good. I agree. Light dispels the darkness. And you know, just by our conversation, this is an uplifting conversation. What are we trying to do? We're trying to impart that, be of good cheer and do your best. You know, yeah, there are problems, but if you just have that focus and have that positive attitude, that's part of life. You've won half your battles already.
Yeah. And I've noticed that because I've been sick right recently, and I'm only human as well. And when I'm sick, I don't do sickness very well because I don't surrender into it. I always try to fight it. So therefore, my vibe is lower than it usually is. Therefore, my thoughts aren't as positive as they usually are. And it's so interesting to see that more negative or low vibe I am, the more I attract that into my world. But then it works both ways. The more positive and uplifting we all are, we attract more of that to us.
Yes.
So it's like a win-win.
It really is. It really is. You know, I have a very simple code, a very simple way of going about my life. When I'm working, when I'm researching, I have 2 or 3 goals a day. I usually accomplish those goals. I don't get caught up in the nonsense and the negativity. And at the end of the day, I'm fine. I have dinner with my wife, and it's been another productive day. It's really a very simple formula.
And I also remember, and I keep referring back to books, this book was The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Have you heard of that one?
No.
That's a good one. And he was talking about gratitude, which is obviously the best place you can, vibrationally the best place you can be. And he was giving an example of, imagine if like God came down to earth and said to most people, you know, how's life? How's it being a human? Like, what do you think of earth? And then people are like, well, it's not very good because this is wrong and I'm not earning enough money and this is wrong and I don't like my body and blah, blah, blah. And like, God's going to be like, what? Like well, he won't judge, but like, how ungrateful for the life that I've given you. And therefore you can just be with what you've got. Whereas if you went to someone who was like, oh my God, life is amazing. Thank you so much for life. Like I get to hug loved ones, the flowers, the trees, nature is phenomenal. All of the things, God's going to be like, wow, I'm so pleased that you're grateful for the life I've given you. Here's some more things to be grateful for. Here's some more things to enjoy. And I really resonated when I heard that described that way.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And, you know, I know life has its pitfalls and there's trials and tribulations, but you know, always try and look on the positive side. You know, if you dwell on the negative, you're going to be negative and your people around you are going to be negative. Get away from that.
Yeah. And by being positive ourselves, we have like a knock-on effect for everybody else. Even if you don't think you do, you really do. Like I'm just thinking you go to a shop and the shop person's like, really happy and friendly and just genuinely looking you in the eyes and saying, have a nice day. And you can feel that they really mean it. It's not just like, have a nice day. Yeah, thank you, bye. Like, that has a little effect on me as the customer, like, oh, he or she was like really nice. And like the little things that you do,
Yeah,
and
sure it does.
it
Yeah,
has a big effect.
because you have that attitude, you have that spirit. And if everybody had that attitude, it'd be a different world. Now picture this. If there's 7.9 billion people in the world, and everybody performed one good deed a day, or said one kind word, or prayed at least once a day, the world would change drastically.
Yeah, it would. If everyone woke up tomorrow and loved themselves and knew who they really were, and then actually appreciated life, the world would just be a different place. So anyone listening right now, this is a little invitation to message someone, call someone, write someone a little letter, just to say that you're thinking of them, you love them, whatever resonates with you. Just reach out to someone and just spread the love, for sure. And Tom, let's talk about scalar energy and time then. So how does that correlate together in terms of time and space?
Yeah, good question. So remember, scalar energy is the cause of nature, the cause of nature. Now, a scalar wave rotates. It's a double helix, it rotates. Now, if you rotate it in one fashion, time moves forward. And if you stop that rotation, time stands still. And then if you reverse that rotation, time moves backwards. So what is the cause of time? Well, you can consider time a timeline. And what dictates that timeline is the motion of scalar energy. So scalar energy as information, when it moves in one direction, time moves forward. Reverse that direction, time moves backwards. Now that speaks to the point, if you see a uniform movement of time in the universe, then the stars are all in sync. By way of synchronicity, they're all spinning, so to speak, in one dimension, in one fashion. So time moves forward. Now, I'll give you this example. There's a great Russian scientist, Viktor Grebennikov, and he was inventing scalar energy flying platforms. Scalar energy controls gravity. And when he was on this scalar energy platform, his wristwatch did not advance. His wristwatch did not observe time because he was in a scalar energy environment, and that movement of scalar energy was arrested or significantly curtailed. And every time Grebennikov was flying around in his anti-gravity platform, he realized that his wristwatch more or less stopped in time.
Wow. Is that how then? Because I believe this, but I've never got my head around this. And I guess the mind can only get your head around so much. Everything's all happening at once, the past, the future, the present.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Can you try to explain that to me in any way, shape, or form?
Well, you're an expert, and everybody's an expert. If God is omnipresent, God is everywhere, then there is no past, there is no future. Everything is one point. Everything is that singularity, that one moment in time. And that's what scalar energy is. It's the presence of God. And since you encompass all time and space, you're not subject to time. Okay, I live in the United States, you live in Europe. There's a time zone difference. But if we lived in a perfect scalar energy environment, the time in Europe would be the time in the United States. There would only be one time, the present moment. So in the electromagnetic spectrum, there's time zones. You live in Europe, I live in the United States. If we lived in exclusively a scalar energy time zone, there'd only be one time, the present moment.
Oh, again, referring back to a book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, he said if you went to a tree and said, what's the time? The tree would say, well, the time is now.
Yes, yes,
That
exactly.
Got me, and it still gets me to this day, because the time is now. And I believe time in the way that we see it, in terms of like now it's 14:34 where I am, it helps us meet on time, in quotes, like, because you and I are here you and I are in the present moment at the same time. Oh my God, this sounds like I'm speaking a riddle. It's useful in the human world that we live in today, actual time.
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. See, you're an expert. Everybody's an expert at scalar energy. Everybody believes, and well, most people believe in God. And if you do, you realize that God is outside of time and space, meaning he transcends time and space. Well, if light, scalar light is God's attribute, then scalar light, the light of God, has to likewise be outside of time and space. Bringing us back to our earlier notion, there's two dimensions. There's the electromagnetic dimension and the scalar dimension. And this is why you see how important now scalar energy is. It's not limited, as is electricity. Scalar light is unlimited.
How could this help with the energy crisis in the world that in terms of actual energies in a light switch energy? Can it help with that?
Yes. In miniature, I have a energy instrument. I have a free energy instrument, a scalar energy instrument. And I can send energy to any photograph in the world. So imagine that I have free energy, scalar energy, and I can pinpoint it to every photograph or every quantum signature in the world. Billions. I could treat billions of people by way of their quantum signature. Now, if we simply increase the power, and instead of directing the energy to a photograph, now we can direct the energy to a home or a school or a factory or a church. Instead of treating a billion people in the quantum field, I can illuminate a billion office buildings.
Wow. So how would the office building, no, that doesn't make sense. I was going to say, would it have to be reciprocal to that? But then the office building's not going to know, like a dog. How would that help in terms of, let's say you go into, where has no energy? Uganda, like an African country, like a third world country, that place. Yeah, my geography is not my strongest point. If you were directing it there,
yes,
would they then be able to like turn on a light? Or am I completely misunderstanding?
No, that's exactly what we're getting at. And this is what I'd like to do. Nikola Tesla erected a tower in the state of New York, a scalar energy tower, and he was able to send out energy anywhere with that tower. Now, if you look at the tower, there were no wires. This is back in the early 1900s. There were no wires. There's no power station next to the tower. So a lot of people were mystified. How is he getting the power for the power station? Well, the power station were the stars. The tower simply captured star energy.
Wow. And why did that get taken? Like, why did that stop?
Money and power. It was a threat. See, this technology is much more efficient than electricity. And with this new technology coming in, it will make obsolete much of the existing power grid. So a lot of people, for evil reasons, they want to hold on to their money and power. And this technology is not embraced. Why? Because it's a free energy. And free energy, as we know here, at least in the United States, the military-industrial complex likes their money and power.
Unfortunately so. I believe that. I watched, like I shared with you before with this podcast, I've watched Thrive, What on Earth Will It Take? And I recommend everybody to watch that. And this isn't obviously a podcast about slating the government. However, you'll be surprised. When I watched that, I was very surprised and also very saddened, actually, on what the hell is actually going on in the world. And unfortunately, it's all to do with money and power. And that makes me sad. But this is why we're here.
Yeah, you're right. When you have that objective, money and power, people don't benefit. That only benefits the elite. And for the sake of this conversation, to keep it short and to the point, we have to get away from that desire just for money and power.
Yeah, exactly that. And I also remember someone saying to me, and this is so true, if meditation or exercise or being outside was something you had to buy, it would be being sold like it was going out of fashion. People would spend thousands on, if you had to, because people don't pay attention to what they don't pay for, right? But something like going and being quiet with yourself for 20 minutes and just, I like to take my cup of tea and go and sit outside and just look at the sky and the clouds and listen to the birds. Like, that's my best way. I prefer to meditate. And that just brings me and grounds me and just makes me, just helps me to be me, who I am. If that was something you had to pay for, it would be very expensive and everyone would be wanting it. So what other things would you recommend that are free, that help to connect us to our own energy of who we really are?
You've already shared your expertise with the audience. It's free. Prayer is free. Our good thought is free. I try to instill this in people. The human mind and the human heart are scalar energy vessels. So think well, feel well, and you've conquered the world essentially. No, you can't change everybody, but you can change yourself and you can change your friends around you. So we have such an incredible impact upon people. I don't know if people quite realize that. If you say something nice to somebody, it bolsters them. It really picks them up. And just practice that. You can change yourself. You can change the world, one person at a time.
Exactly. And it's because I'm a self-love coach, it all starts with you as well. Always, like, if you're being kind to somebody else, be kind to yourself as well. If you're giving someone else the love, give yourself the love too, because you are the source of that anyway. I like to say to my clients, say, for example, if one of them said the other day, I'm not feeling very confident in myself, in who I am. I gave a homework assignment of going to find 2 people that week that felt unconfident, and then she was giving them reassurance, she was giving them positive confidence, like she was giving that to the people who felt unconfident, and that just proves that she is the source of what she says she lacks. So she can give it to somebody else, she can also give it to herself, but we tend to forget that. Why do you think we find it so easy to give to others? Most of us, I mean, not all of us, but then we find it difficult to give to ourselves. Like, I know this is off topic, but I'm just curious on what you think about that.
People have to love God, love their neighbor, and love themselves. And that golden rule will really address so many issues today. And yes, you have to take care of yourself. And yes, you have to realize that you're important. And maybe that comes from negativity. Maybe that comes from people just having a bad attitude, lack of self-confidence. Don't listen to people if they put you down. Don't listen to that. Get away from that. Get away from that. Surround yourself with good people that are happy, of good cheer. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. You can't go wrong with that.
No, I love that. And when I first met you, and also this morning, your energy is like, good morning, Victoria. Like, just such a gift just to be on the receiving end of your love and happiness and energy. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I have one more question before I'd love you to share how people can access what you do and all the juice. So in terms of photosynthesis then, because this is a very interesting question, how can scalar energy, how is that similar to photosynthesis is to a plant for us humans and scalar energy?
Okay. Keep in mind, scalar energy is sunlight, starlight. Now, if you're a plant, you grow by sunlight, obviously. Now, my predecessor, a man by the name of Galen Hieronymus, a scalar energy researcher, grew plants in his basement in the dark. He took a scalar energy antenna on his roof and he attached a wire from that antenna and ran the wire into potted plants in his basement. And in the dark, he grew plants by way of scalar energy. So by that experiment, it proves to me at least that scalar energy is the motivating principle behind photosynthesis, that electricity and magnetism have a secondary effect. Remember, the prime mover here was scalar energy. Scalar energy was channeled, funneled into those potted plants in the dark. So scalar energy was the prime mover, and then the secondary effect was electricity, magnetism, electromagnetic energy. So if Galen Hieronymus can grow plants in the dark with scalar energy, that proves that the real motivating force, the animating force of photosynthesis is scalar energy, which is the perfect energy of the stars. Now that doesn't discount electricity and magnetism, electromagnetic energy having its desired effect also.
Wow. What comes to mind is when there's a will, there's always a way. And I feel your will is God, like is your soul, is the will behind your choices, like, 'cause it's a free will universe, planet Earth, obviously we get to choose. Yes. So I believe the will is behind that. So when you were sharing that, 2 things came to mind. First of all, if there's a will, there's a way. And second of all, the old wives' tale, which is so true for me because I've done it and I continue to do it. If you talk or sing to your plants, they grow quicker and more abundantly than if you didn't. And it's an old wives' tale for a reason. Try it. It works. It doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And they performed experiments subjecting plants to, say, a melody, a pleasing melody or opera, as opposed to subjecting plants to, say, hard rock or other some type of a very, if you will, violent music. And the plants always fare better when they're around this melody, this soft melody or opera, or this soothing melody, if you will, as opposed to hard rock and roll. What does that mean? Well, if that works for plants, it's probably applicable to people.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? And listeners, like, if you're still with us, thank you. And also, just imagine what is possible if we have an open mind and an open heart. I know that my listeners do have an open mind and an open heart, which is why you're here. But just imagine what is possible if we used to think the world was flat. If we used to think all sorts of things, I'm trying to think of a good example that science has now discovered and I can't, but just think about it for a minute of all the things that we've discussed today. That's real. And if that's possible, try it for yourself, because Tom's now going to share how you can not just listen, how you can actually try this out for yourself. So Tom, how can people access this?
I always like to prove that there's merit to my work. So our website has 15 days of free sessions for anybody. You're going to email us your photograph. Remember, we work in the quantum field with an emailed photograph. Scalarlight.com. You can send in photographs of your entire family. And I also encourage you to consider sending in photographs of your pets, your dogs, your cats, your horses. So for 15 days, we will balance your chakras, brainwaves. We will identify and negate or break apart viruses, bacteria, microbes on your photograph, and we'll also assemble nutrients. We do all of that in the information field. Now, this is information, this is instructional, and the photograph receives the action. No matter where you live in the world, the photograph receives the action. So what is the photograph? It's your bilocated version. We don't work with people, we work with their bilocated version, which is a photograph, the quantum field.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do they need to do anything in terms of being able to receive that, or do they just go about their day and just know that they're receiving all this wonderful, loving, healing energy?
Yeah, just ask God for the healing, but you don't need to change your lifestyle. We don't give medical advice. I'm not a medical practitioner. I'm a scalar energy researcher. So we just ask people live a normal life.
And I'm curious, one last question before I let you go. I'm thinking in Tom's world, so you get, I mean, it's not just you, you've got like countless people working for you. If you don't mind sharing, what does that physically look like? So you get up and you go to this machine and you put the photograph in, like, talk us through like what you're actually physically and mentally doing when, say, if you're putting Karen's photograph in there or something.
I always start with a prayer. Before I start any session, I always start with a prayer. And yes, I work with photographs, but I work with thousands of photographs every day. Today in my laboratory, I'm probably working with 250,000 people.
Wow.
I'm receiving photo collages like this from around the world. I'm working with 250,000 people through their photograph, And then for 1 hour a day, I balance their chakras of their brainwaves. And then another hour, I can pinpoint and eradicate microbes, germs. And then there's another instrument that for 22 hours a day, we can assemble nutrients, antioxidants, and amino acids. So it's a 24-hour process, and it keeps me busy. And that's my daily routine.
Wow. And do you give it to yourself as well, I'm guessing?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I feel great. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to leave the listeners with?
Thank you for your time, first of all. Thanks for an inspiring interview. I admonish people, just look at the website if you're inclined. Send in email us your photographs. All we need is a bust shot, your face, that's all. And you, the audience, you decide if this is of merit. I cannot prove this. This is a new science. It cannot be proven. So we're going to rely upon your testimony.
Yay, amazing. And Queens, please share with me as well how you find this. I've signed up for this, and I love the emails as well, by the way, Tom. They're really informative, and I learn something every day. And I've not been very well, and I feel like so much better today. My sleep's been fantastic, which I know you said that was a positive side effect of this, like people sleep well.
Yes, that's usually the chakra bouncing. Within the first 2 or 3 days, you sleep a more meaningful, a deeper sleep. And a lot of people then start recalling their dreams or having vivid dreams because we've rebalanced the brain waves and the meridians.
Wow. And I'm just going to share one dream, which is going to sound really strange, but this has happened since you've been healing with the energy. I had a dream that I was in this haunted house and people were around me. I didn't know who they were. And there was this dark force in this haunted house. And I like grew into this like light, really. And then I just kept saying, I am light. I am light. And then they couldn't hear me. So I really had to focus and say, I am light. And then everything was just okay. And then I woke up, which sounds very bizarre on the receiving end, but that just, wow.
And you are light. You're made in God's image. You are light.
Yeah.
You're made in God's image.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And thank you, Queens, for tuning in. Go and check it out. Have you got any social media links, Tom, or do you not?
I do, but it's too confusing. I just direct people to the website.
Okay, I'll link the website below. So thank you again, and we'll see you next episode.